Grease hisses on the griddle. A cane taps twice against the counter. Deliberate, unhurried. 5 shadows cross the window before the bell over the door even rings. Rosa doesn't look up. She's seen this before. She thinks she knows how it ends. "Sit wherever you want," she says to the stranger by the door. He picks the seat right next to the blind man. Rosa has poured coffee in this diner for 22 years, long enough to know the sound of trouble before it walks in. The particular rhythm of boots that don't care who hears them. She keeps her eyes on the coffee pot, not because she's afraid, but because looking away is the only power she has left in a building that stopped being hers the day the owner fell behind on a debt he never should have made. The blind man at the counter is a regular, Ray. Vietnam took his eyes and gave him nothing back for them. He comes in every night at the same hour, orders the same meal, taps his cane twice on the counter like a man announcing himself to a room that mostly forgets he's there. Rosa always says his name before anyone else does. Tonight is no different. The usual Ray? You know me too well, Rosa. That's when the bell rings. Danny Cotto walks in like he owns the linoleum because tonight, in every way that matters to him, he does. 22 years old. Jacket too heavy for the weather. The kind of walk that's been rehearsed in front of enough mirrors to look natural. 4 men trail him. Not friends. Not really. Employees of a fear he's still learning how to spend. If you've ever watched someone try to prove something to a person who isn't even in the room, drop a comment below. Because that's exactly what's about to happen here. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why it matters. Danny's older brother built this crew from nothing. Ran these 3 blocks like a kingdom until 3 years ago when the police finally caught up with him. Danny inherited the crown without inheriting the weight of wearing it. In 2 weeks, his brother walks free, and Danny has spent 3 years making sure that when that door opens, the streets will already have told him a story. Danny kept it strong. Danny kept it feared. Every diner he's turned inside out, every shopkeeper who's paid double just to keep the lights on, every stranger he's rearranged in front of an audience. None of it is really about them. It's a letter he's writing to a man who isn't reading it yet. Tonight, the letter needs a new line. He sees Ray first. The white cane resting against the counter. The empty stare aimed at nothing. To Danny, dressed in his own fear of ever becoming small, ever becoming needed, ever becoming a burden someone else has to carry. Ray isn't a man. He's a mirror. And Danny doesn't know yet that he's about to hate what he sees in it. "Look at this," Danny says, loud enough for the whole diner. "Blind man out here eating alone. Somebody help him find his mouth." One of his men laughs too quickly, the way men laugh when they're checking to see if it's safe. Ray doesn't turn, doesn't flinch. He's been in rooms louder than this one. Rooms where the wrong reaction got someone killed. He knows how to be still. That stillness is what makes Danny angrier. He knocks the sugar dispenser off the counter. It shatters. He tips Ray's coffee, just enough to scald the man's hand, watching for a reaction he doesn't get. His men circle in, laughing louder now, the kind of laughter built entirely out of borrowed nerve. And that's when the man who sat down beside Ray finally speaks. "You mind if I stay here? I like this seat." He's not big, not the kind of presence that fills a doorway. Just a quiet man in a plain jacket, dark eyes that seem to be watching everything and nothing at once. Danny barely glances at him. Another face that doesn't matter. Another extra in a scene he's directing. Nobody in that diner knows his name yet. That's the point. He turns to Ray, voice low, almost private, like the chaos around them is happening in another room entirely. "You a baseball man?" Ray blinks, caught off guard by the question more than by anything Danny's done. "Dodgers. Since '58. Good year to start. Koufax was something else. You ever see him pitch? Once, from the cheap seats. Around them, Danny is still performing, knocking over napkin holders, mocking the cane, playing to his crew like dignity is a currency he can print as much of as he wants. And the stranger just keeps talking baseball. Unhurried, like he has all night, like none of it is happening. If you're wondering why he isn't reacting yet, that's not fear. Stay with me, because what happens next is the reason 5 men walked into this diner standing, and only one walked out the same way. Danny finally notices. Not the man's face, his stillness. There's a version of calm that comes from not caring, and a version that comes from not needing to. Danny has spent 3 years learning to read fear in other people's eyes. He doesn't yet have the vocabulary to read the opposite. You got a problem? Danny asks, stepping closer. No, the stranger says. Just finishing a conversation. One of Danny's men shoves the stranger's shoulder, testing, the way a dog tests a fence. The stranger doesn't move his feet, doesn't raise his voice. He simply turns and for the first time looks directly at Danny. My name is Bruce, he says. Lee. The name lands differently on different faces. One of the men goes pale. He's heard stories, half believed, from a cousin who trained in Oakland. Danny hasn't heard the name at all. And that gap, that half second where 4 men suddenly understand something their leader doesn't, is the first crack in the room's balance of power. Danny laughs it off, grabs Ray's cane off the counter and tosses it across the floor out of reach. The ultimate small cruelty, taking the one tool that lets a blind man navigate a world built for people who can see. That's the mistake. Bruce doesn't stand up fast. He doesn't shout. He rises the way water finds the shape of a container. No wasted motion, no announcement. What follows isn't a beating. It's a lesson conducted at high speed. The first man throws a punch aimed at nothing because Bruce is already somewhere else. A half step to the side, and the man's own momentum carries him into the counter stool. The second comes in low, trying to grab, and finds his wrist caught. Turned, released before pain even fully registers, enough to teach, not enough to break. The third throws a bottle. It never reaches its target. Bruce's hand meets his forearm first, redirecting force instead of matching it, and the man spins into his friend behind him. Rosa has stopped moving entirely, coffee pot still in her hand, watching 5 men who terrorized this diner for months look, for the first time, like they're chasing something they can't catch. The 4th man is smarter. He waits, circles, throws a real combination. Fast hands, trained somewhere, not a total amateur. For one suspended second, Bruce takes a graze across the jaw, the only contact that lands all night. The diner goes silent enough to hear the neon sign buzz. Then Bruce answers. Not with fury, with precision. An open palm to the chest, controlled, and the man sits down hard against the counter, more winded than hurt. Understanding arriving on his face a full second after his body already knew. Danny is the last one standing. And Danny, who built his entire identity on being the one men fear, finds himself facing someone who isn't afraid of him, has never been afraid of him, and doesn't need to hurt him to prove it. Bruce doesn't strike him. He simply steps inside Danny's next punch before it finishes traveling, catches the wrist, and holds it. No violence, no flourish. Just stillness. Danny strains against a grip that doesn't fight back and doesn't let go either. For 3 long seconds, the entire diner watches a young man discover exactly how much of his strength was borrowed from people too afraid to test it. You could have hit me, Danny says, breathing hard, something unfamiliar cracking through his voice. Why didn't you? I didn't need to, Bruce says. You already know how this ends. He releases him. Danny stumbles back, and for the first time all night, nobody laughs. Bruce doesn't watch him leave. He crosses the room, crouches by the fallen white cane on the dirty linoleum under the flickering neon light, and picks it up. He doesn't hand it to Rosa. He doesn't set it on the counter. He walks it directly to Ray and places it in his hands. You don't give a man back his dignity, he says quietly. You just stop taking it away. Ray's fingers close around the familiar wood, and something in his shoulders that's been braced for 3 years of nightly humiliation finally, visibly, lets go. Danny is already at the door, his men limping out behind him, none of them looking back. He doesn't understand everything that just happened to him, but he understands this much. The story he was writing for his brother, the one about strength that never bends. Just met a version of strength that never needed to prove anything at all. He doesn't change that night. Men rarely do. But he walks out with a question he didn't have 20 minutes earlier, and questions like that have a way of outliving the men who ask them. Rosa never charges Bruce for his coffee. Not that night. Not the handful of nights he comes back over the following months. She never mentions it to him, and he never asks. It's the kind of gratitude that doesn't need to be spoken to be real. Ray comes back the next night, too. Same stool. Same order. He taps his cane twice against the counter, and for the first time in longer than he can remember, nobody in that room hears it as anything but a man announcing that he's arrived exactly as he is, and that's enough. If this story moved you, that's exactly why I make these. True stories about the moments that don't make the history books, but should. Hit subscribe if you want more of them, because there are dozens still waiting to be told, and I promise none of them will feel like the last one. Tell me in the comments, what do you think Danny remembered years later on the night his brother finally walked free?